In a small, forgotten town where the roads were cracked and the buildings wore layers of dust, there lived a boy named Marcus. Life in this town was hard, especially for someone like Marcus, whose family struggled to put food on the table every day. His father had passed away when he was just 6 years old, leaving his mother to raise him alone. She worked long hours cleaning houses and doing odd jobs, but it was never enough. Despite their hardships, Marcus grew up with a heart full of hope and kindness. He believed that no matter how difficult things got, there was always room for goodness in the world. Every morning, Marcus woke up before sunrise to help his mother prepare breakfast, a meal that usually consisted of stale bread or leftovers from the night before. Afterward, he would walk the 3 miles to school, carrying an old backpack patched together with threadbare fabric. At school, Marcus often went unnoticed by his classmates, most of whom came from families far better off than his own. But Marcus didn't mind being invisible. Instead, he used his quiet nature to observe the world around him. He noticed the way some kids teased others for wearing worn-out shoes or bringing meager lunches. He saw how teachers sometimes overlooked students who couldn't afford fancy notebooks or uniforms. And he vowed silently that when he grew up, he would do everything in his power to make sure no one felt as unseen as he did. After school, Marcus spent his afternoons working part-time at the local grocery store. It wasn't glamorous work. He stocked shelves, swept floors, and carried bags for customers, but it paid just enough to buy a few extra groceries each week. On particularly tough days, when his feet ached from standing all day or his stomach growled because he hadn't eaten since breakfast, Marcus reminded himself that his efforts mattered. Even if it was only a little bit, he was helping his mother keep their fragile household afloat. One chilly evening, as Marcus walked home from work, something caught his eye near the park. Sitting on the curb under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp was an elderly man. The man's clothes were torn and dirty, and his face bore the deep lines of someone who had weathered many storms. In his hand, he clutched a piece of cardboard with shaky handwriting that read, "Hungry and grateful." Marcus stopped in his tracks. He had seen homeless people before, but something about this man struck him differently. Maybe it was the look of resignation in his eyes, or perhaps it was the way he sat so still, as though he had given up on expecting anything good to happen. Whatever it was, Marcus felt a tug at his heartstrings. Reaching into his bag, he pulled out the sandwich he had saved from lunch, a plain peanut butter and jelly sandwich wrapped in a napkin. It wasn't much, but it was all he had left to eat that day. Without overthinking it, Marcus approached the man and held out the sandwich. "Here," he said softly. "You can have this." The man looked up, startled. For a moment, he seemed unsure whether to take the offering. Then, slowly, he reached out with trembling hands and accepted it. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice rough but filled with genuine gratitude. As Marcus watched the man unwrap the sandwich and take a bite, he felt a strange sense of satisfaction. It wasn't pity or pride. It was something deeper, a feeling that he had done exactly what he was meant to do. Curiosity got the better of him, and Marcus decided to sit down beside the man. "What's your name?" he asked. "Thompson," the man replied between bites. "But everyone calls me Mr. Thompson." Marcus nodded and introduced himself, then asked if Mr. Thompson had been living on the streets for long. The older man hesitated before answering, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "Longer than I care to admit," he finally said. There was a heaviness in his tone, as though the weight of his past pressed down on him like a mountain. Sensing that Mr. Thompson didn't want to talk about it, Marcus changed the subject. They chatted casually about the weather, the town, and other light topics until the sky grew darker and colder. Eventually, Marcus realized he needed to get home before his mother worried. Reluctantly, he stood up and bid Mr. Thompson goodbye, promising to see him again soon. Over the next few weeks, Marcus made it a point to visit Mr. Thompson whenever he passed through the park. Sometimes he brought leftover food from dinner. Other times he shared snacks he had packed for himself. Each time the two of them would sit together and talk, forming a bond that neither had anticipated. Through these conversations, Marcus learned, bits and pieces about Mr. Thompson's life. He discovered that the man had once been married and had a daughter, both of whom had passed away years ago. He also learned that Mr. Thompson loved reading books, though he hadn't held one in ages, because he couldn't afford them anymore. Despite the sadness woven into his stories, there was a glimmer of warmth in Mr. Thompson's eyes whenever he spoke to Marcus. One evening, as they sat side by side on the curb, Mr. Thompson turned to Marcus and said, "You know, son, not many people would share what little they have with a stranger like me. Most folks either ignore me or treat me like I'm invisible. But you've shown me kindness without expecting anything in return." Marcus shrugged modestly, brushing off the compliment. "It's not a big deal," he replied. "Everyone deserves a chance to feel seen." Those words lingered in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Little did Marcus know, Mr. Thompson's life was far more complicated and extraordinary than he could have ever imagined. Unbeknownst to Marcus, Mr. Thompson wasn't just another homeless man struggling to survive. Years ago, he had been a successful entrepreneur, owning multiple businesses and amassing a fortune that placed him among the wealthiest individuals in the country. However, a series of bad investments and betrayals by those he trusted most had stripped him of everything. With nowhere else to turn, he ended up on the streets, clinging to the remnants of his dignity. For a long time, he harbored bitterness and resentment, convinced that the world had turned its back on him. But Marcus's unwavering kindness reignited something within him, a spark of hope, and a reminder of the values he had once cherished. As the days went by, Mr. Thompson found himself looking forward to Marcus's visits. The young boy's presence brought a sense of purpose back into his life, reminding him of the importance of human connection. Slowly but surely, he began to let go of the anger that had consumed him for so long. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset, Mr. Thompson made a decision. He wanted to repay Marcus for his selflessness, not out of obligation, but because he believed the boy deserved a brighter future. What Mr. Thompson didn't realize yet was that this decision would set into motion a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. The next time Marcus visited the park, he noticed something different about Mr. Thompson. The old man seemed more alert, his posture straighter, and there was a glimmer of determination in his eyes that hadn't been there before. When Marcus approached him, Mr. Thompson greeted him with an unusually warm smile. "Marcus," he said, his voice steady and clear, "I've been thinking a lot about you these past few days. You've done so much for me without asking for anything in return. Now, I want to do something for you." Marcus frowned slightly, unsure of what Mr. Thompson meant. "You don't owe me anything," he replied quickly. "I just wanted to help because it felt like the right thing to do." Mr. Thompson chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It's not about owing or repaying debts, son. It's about recognizing goodness when you see it and nurturing it so it can grow. You've reminded me of who I used to be, a man who believed in helping others and making the world a better place. That's why I want to give you a chance to build the life you deserve." Marcus listened intently, though he still didn't fully understand what Mr. Thompson was getting at. Before he could ask any questions, the older man stood up and gestured for Marcus to follow him. "Come with me," Mr. Thompson said firmly. "There's something I need to show you." Curiosity piqued, Marcus followed Mr. Thompson through the quiet streets until they reached a small, unassuming building tucked away in a corner of town. Above its entrance hung a faded sign that read, "Law Offices of Harold Jenkins." Inside, the office was neat but sparsely decorated, with shelves lined with thick legal books and papers stacked neatly on a desk. An elderly lawyer with glasses, perched on the tip of his nose, greeted them warmly. After exchanging pleasantries, Mr. Thompson explained the purpose of their visit. "Harold, this is Marcus," he said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "He's the reason I'm here. Today, I'd like to set up a trust fund for him, something that will ensure he has the resources he needs to pursue his dreams." Marcus's jaw dropped in shock. A trust fund? For him? He shook his head vigorously, backing away as if trying to distance himself from the idea. "No, no, no," he stammered. "I can't accept that. I'm just a kid trying to get by. I don't deserve something like that." But Mr. Thompson wouldn't hear any protests. With a firm yet gentle tone, he explained that the money wasn't charity. It was an investment in someone who had already proven his character. "You've shown me that kindness matters more than wealth," Mr. Thompson said earnestly. "And now I want to use what little I have left to make sure your future is brighter than mine ever was." Over the next hour, the lawyer guided them through the process of setting up the trust fund. Marcus sat silently, overwhelmed by the enormity of what was happening. He couldn't wrap his mind around the fact that a homeless man, a man he had only known for a short while, was willing to give him such an incredible gift. As they finalized the paperwork, Mr. Thompson turned to Marcus and said, "This isn't just about you, son. It's about what you'll do with it. Use this opportunity to create change, not just for yourself but for others too." Those words stuck with Marcus long after they left the lawyer's office. That night, as Marcus lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling above him, his mind raced with thoughts and emotions. Part of him felt guilty for accepting the money as though he hadn't earned it. Another part of him felt grateful beyond measure, knowing that this gift would ease the burden on his mother and open doors he had never thought possible. Most importantly, he felt a deep sense of responsibility. If Mr. Thompson believed in him enough to make such a sacrifice, then Marcus owed it to both of them to prove that belief was well placed. From that moment on, he resolved to work harder than ever, not just to succeed but to honor the spirit of generosity that had brought him this far. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. With Mr. Thompson's guidance, Marcus began exploring how best to utilize the trust fund. They decided that education would be the first step toward securing a stable future. Marcus enrolled in a nearby community college where he studied business management with the goal of eventually starting his own nonprofit organization. His classes weren't easy. Balancing coursework with his job at the grocery store and caring for his mother required every ounce of energy he had. Yet whenever he felt discouraged, he remembered Mr. Thompson's words. "Kindness changes everything." Those simple words became his mantra, pushing him forward even when the road ahead seemed impossibly steep. As months passed, Marcus's relationship with Mr. Thompson grew stronger. The old man continued to mentor him, sharing stories from his own experiences as a businessman and offering advice on leadership and decision-making. In return, Marcus introduced Mr. Thompson to new hobbies and activities, like reading novels, borrowed from the library, and playing chess at the local community center. These small pleasures brought a renewed sense of joy into Mr. Thompson's life, helping him rediscover parts of himself he thought were lost forever. Together, they formed a bond that transcended age, background, and circumstance, a friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. One day, while walking home from class, Marcus spotted Mr. Thompson sitting on a bench near the park where they had first met. This time, however, the old man looked different. Gone were the tattered clothes and weary expression. Instead, he wore a clean shirt and trousers, his face glowing with vitality. Beside him sat a suitcase filled with neatly folded clothes and personal belongings. Sensing Marcus's confusion, Mr. Thompson smiled broadly and said, "I've decided it's time for a fresh start. Thanks to you, I've realized that my story doesn't have to end here. I may not get back everything I lost, but I can still rebuild my life one step at a time." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes as he hugged the man who had become like a second father to him. Over the next few weeks, Marcus helped Mr. Thompson secure temporary housing and reconnect with distant relatives who welcomed him back into their lives. Though they no longer lived in the same town, they stayed in touch regularly, exchanging letters and phone calls that kept their bond alive. Through it all, Marcus remained focused on his studies, determined to turn the opportunities he had been given into meaningful action. By the end of his first year at college, Marcus had already begun laying the groundwork for his nonprofit organization. Inspired by his own journey, he envisioned a program designed to support underprivileged youth in pursuing education and career goals. He called it Pathways to Purpose, a name that reflected his belief in the transformative power of opportunity. With Mr. Thompson's blessing, he poured his heart and soul into the project, recruiting volunteers, securing funding, and partnering with local schools and businesses. Slowly but surely, his vision took shape, becoming a beacon of hope for countless young people who, like him, dreamed of a better tomorrow. Through it all, Marcus never forgot where he came from, or the act of kindness that had changed his life. Whenever he encountered someone in need, whether it was a struggling student or a stranger on the street, he made it a point to offer whatever assistance he could. To him, kindness wasn't just an abstract concept. It was a tangible force capable of breaking cycles of poverty and despair. And though he now walked paths paved with privilege, he carried the lessons of humility and compassion with him wherever he went. Years later, as Marcus stood on stage delivering a speech at the grand opening of Pathways to Purpose's first community center, he paused to reflect on how far he had come. Beside him sat Mr. Thompson, now frail, but smiling proudly as tears glistened in his eyes. Looking out at the audience, a mix of friends, family, and supporters, Marcus recounted the story of a poor black boy and a homeless elder whose lives had intertwined in ways neither could have predicted. He spoke of the ripple effect of kindness, urging everyone present to remember that even the smallest gestures could spark monumental change. As applause erupted around him, Marcus knew one thing for certain. The legacy of kindness he and Mr. Thompson had built together would continue to inspire generations to come. As the months rolled on, Marcus found himself growing not just as a student but as a person. The weight of responsibility that came with the trust fund Mr. Thompson had set up for him was both daunting and motivating. Every morning he woke up with a sense of purpose, knowing that his actions weren't just about securing his own future, they were about honoring the faith someone else had placed in him. He threw himself into his studies at the community college, attending classes during the day and working late shifts at the grocery store to cover household expenses. Despite the long hours and exhausting routine, Marcus never complained. Instead, he channeled his energy into learning everything he could about business management, leadership, and community development. One of the most transformative experiences during this time was an internship Marcus secured at a local nonprofit organization focused on providing resources to underprivileged families. At first, he felt out of place among seasoned professionals who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. But soon enough, Marcus realized that his unique perspective, born from years of living through hardship, was invaluable. He understood the struggles these families faced because he had lived them himself. Whether it was helping parents fill out forms for financial aid or mentoring teenagers unsure of their next steps, Marcus approached every task with empathy and determination. His supervisors noticed his dedication and began assigning him more responsibilities, giving him a glimpse into how nonprofits operated behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to stay in touch with Mr. Thompson, who had settled into a modest apartment thanks to support from distant relatives. Though their lives were no longer intertwined in the same way, the bond between them remained strong. They spoke regularly over the phone, sharing updates about their respective journeys. Mr. Thompson often encouraged Marcus to dream big, reminding him that the trust fund wasn't meant to limit his ambitions but to expand them. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Mr. Thompson would say. "Don't let fear hold you back. If something feels right, go after it." These words resonated deeply with Marcus, fueling his desire to create lasting change in his community. Inspired by his internship and conversations with Mr. Thompson, Marcus began drafting a plan for his own nonprofit organization. He envisioned a program that would address not only educational barriers, but also emotional and social challenges faced by young people growing up in poverty. He called it Pathways to Purpose, a name that symbolized his belief in guiding individuals toward meaningful goals. The idea was simple yet ambitious: provide mentorship, scholarships, and career training to underserved youth while fostering a sense of belonging and self-worth. It wasn't just about teaching skills. It was about instilling confidence and hope in those who might otherwise feel invisible. To bring his vision to life, Marcus knew he needed help. He started reaching out to professors, classmates, and colleagues from his internship, pitching his idea and seeking advice. Some dismissed him outright, assuming a teenager fresh out of high school couldn't possibly pull off such a project. Others, however, saw potential in his passion and offered guidance. One professor in particular, Dr. Emily Carter, became a mentor to Marcus. She introduced him to grant-writing workshops, networking events, and fundraising strategies, equipping him with tools he hadn't even known existed. Under her guidance, Marcus refined his proposal, turning vague ideas into concrete plans. The road ahead wasn't easy. Securing funding proved to be one of the biggest hurdles Marcus faced. Writing grant applications required patience and precision, two qualities that didn't always come naturally to him. There were nights when he stayed up until dawn, poring over documents and revising proposals until his eyes blurred. Rejections piled up, each one a blow to his confidence. Yet, every time he felt like giving up, he thought of Mr. Thompson sitting on that curb, hungry and forgotten, and how a single act of kindness had changed both their lives. That memory kept him going, pushing him to try again and again. Eventually, Marcus's persistence paid off. A local foundation dedicated to supporting innovative community projects awarded him a small grant to kickstart Pathways to Purpose. It wasn't much, but it was enough to rent a tiny office space and hire a part-time coordinator. With this initial boost, Marcus threw himself into building the organization from scratch. He spent weekends painting walls, setting up desks, and organizing supplies donated by friends and neighbors. Slowly but surely, the office transformed into a welcoming hub for young people seeking guidance and support. Word spread quickly about Pathways to Purpose, drawing in students eager to learn and volunteers willing to contribute their time and expertise. Marcus worked tirelessly to ensure everyone felt valued and heard. He held weekly meetings where participants could voice their concerns, share successes, and brainstorm solutions to common problems. For many of the kids, this was the first time anyone had asked for their input or treated their opinions as important. It created a sense of ownership and pride that extended beyond the walls of the office. One of the most rewarding aspects of running Pathways to Purpose was seeing the tangible impact it had on participants' lives. Take, for example, a shy teenager named Jamal, who joined the program unsure of what he wanted to do after high school. Through mentorship sessions and career exploration workshops, Jamal discovered a passion for graphic design. With Marcus's help, he applied for scholarships and eventually enrolled in a prestigious art school. Another participant, Maria, struggled with balancing academics and caring for her younger siblings. Pathways to Purpose connected her with tutoring services and flexible job opportunities, allowing her to excel in school while still supporting her family. Despite the successes, Marcus encountered plenty of challenges along the way. Some days, it felt like the odds were stacked against him. Funding shortages forced him to make tough decisions about which programs to prioritize. Criticism from skeptics who doubted his ability to sustain the organization weighed heavily on his mind. And then there were moments of self-doubt, when he questioned whether he was truly making a difference. During these times, Marcus leaned on the lessons he had learned from Mr. Thompson: resilience, gratitude, and the power of kindness. Mr. Thompson himself remained a constant source of encouragement. Though physically distant, he followed Marcus's progress closely, offering advice whenever needed. On one occasion, when Marcus was particularly discouraged after losing a major grant application, Mr. Thompson sent him a letter filled with wisdom and reassurance. "Success isn't measured by how many times you win," he wrote. "It's measured by how many times you get back up after falling. You've already achieved so much, Marcus. Don't lose sight of that." Reading those words reignited Marcus's determination, reminding him why he had started this journey in the first place. As Pathways to Purpose gained momentum, Marcus began receiving invitations to speak at conferences and community events. At first, public speaking terrified him. Standing in front of large crowds made his palms sweat and his voice tremble. But with practice, and a lot of deep breaths, he grew more comfortable sharing his story. Each speech became an opportunity to inspire others, to remind them that kindness and perseverance could overcome even the toughest obstacles. Audiences responded enthusiastically, often approaching him afterward to express gratitude or ask how they could contribute to his cause. Through it all, Marcus never lost sight of his roots. No matter how busy he got, he made time to visit his old neighborhood, checking in on friends and family who had supported him during his darkest days. He also continued volunteering at the local shelter where he and Mr. Thompson had once shared meals. These acts of humility grounded him, serving as reminders of where he came from and why his work mattered. To Marcus, success wasn't about forgetting his past. It was about using it to build a better future for others. By the end of his second year at college, Pathways to Purpose had grown into a thriving organization with multiple branches across the region. What had started as a modest initiative run by a determined young man had blossomed into a beacon of hope for countless individuals. Yet, Marcus knew this was only the beginning. His ultimate goal was to expand the program nationwide, ensuring that no child ever felt trapped by circumstances beyond their control. As he looked ahead to the challenges and opportunities that lay before him, Marcus carried with him the unwavering belief that kindness, not wealth, status, or power, was the true currency of change. As Marcus's nonprofit, Pathways to Purpose, continued to grow, so did the demands on his time and energy. The organization had become a beacon of hope for many, but running it was no small feat. Each day brought new challenges: securing funding, managing volunteers, addressing the needs of participants, and navigating bureaucratic hurdles. Yet, Marcus approached every obstacle with the same determination that had driven him since he first shared his sandwich with Mr. Thompson. He often reminded himself that the struggles he faced were nothing compared to the hardships endured by those he aimed to help. This perspective kept him grounded, even when the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. One of the biggest turning points came when Marcus decided to host a fundraising gala to raise awareness about Pathways to Purpose and attract larger donations. It was an ambitious undertaking, especially for someone who had never organized such an event before. But Marcus was undeterred. With the help of Dr. Carter and a team of dedicated volunteers, he began planning every detail, from securing a venue to inviting influential community leaders. They worked tirelessly for months, spreading the word through social media, local newspapers, and word of mouth. Marcus poured his heart into designing the program, ensuring that it not only showcased the impact of the organization, but also honored the stories of the people it served. The night of the gala arrived, and Marcus stood nervously at the entrance of the grand hall, watching as guests trickled in. The room was elegantly decorated with banners displaying photos of Pathways to Purpose participants, alongside quotes about resilience and kindness. As the event unfolded, Marcus took the stage to deliver a speech. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the microphone, but his voice rang clear and steady. He spoke about his own journey, the struggles of growing up poor, the pivotal moment when he met Mr. Thompson, and the dream that had inspired him to create Pathways to Purpose. He shared stories of young people whose lives had been transformed by the organization, emphasizing that their success was proof that compassion could spark real change. By the end of his speech, the audience erupted into applause, moved by Marcus's sincerity and vision. The highlight of the evening came when Mr. Thompson, now frail but smiling proudly, joined Marcus on stage. Together they unveiled a plaque dedicating the event to the power of kindness. Tears filled the eyes of many attendees as they witnessed the bond between the two men, a bond that had started with a simple act of generosity and grown into something extraordinary. That night, Pathways to Purpose raised more money than Marcus had ever imagined possible, enough to expand its reach significantly and implement new programs. With the additional funds, Marcus focused on broadening the scope of Pathways to Purpose. One of his key initiatives was creating a mentorship program that paired participants with professionals from various fields. He believed that exposure to different career paths could inspire young people to dream bigger and aim higher. To launch this initiative, Marcus reached out to local business owners, educators, and community leaders, asking them to volunteer their time and expertise. Many were hesitant at first, unsure if they had anything meaningful to offer. But Marcus's passion was infectious, and soon he had assembled a diverse group of mentors eager to make a difference. The mentorship program quickly became one of the most popular aspects of Pathways to Purpose. Participants thrived under the guidance of adults who genuinely cared about their futures. For example, a high school senior named Jasmine, who dreamed of becoming a doctor, was paired with a physician who introduced her to the world of medicine. Through shadowing opportunities and hands-on workshops, Jasmine gained confidence in her abilities and secured a scholarship to study biology in college. Another participant, Kevin, discovered a love for engineering thanks to his mentor, who taught him how to design and build robots. These success stories reinforced Marcus's belief that investing in young people's potential could yield transformative results. Despite the progress, Marcus knew that systemic issues like poverty and inequality couldn't be solved overnight. He understood that while Pathways to Purpose provided valuable resources and support, it was only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Determined to address these broader challenges, Marcus collaborated with other organizations and advocacy groups to tackle root causes. He attended town hall meetings, lobbied for policy changes, and participated in campaigns aimed at improving access to education, healthcare, and affordable housing. Though these efforts required immense patience and persistence, Marcus remained committed to fighting for long-term solutions. Through all the ups and downs, Marcus continued to draw strength from his relationship with Mr. Thompson. Even as the older man's health declined, he remained a steadfast source of wisdom and encouragement. Their conversations grew deeper, touching on topics like legacy, purpose, and the interconnectedness of human lives. Mr. Thompson often reflected on how meeting Marcus had reignited his faith in humanity. "You've given me more than I gave. You," he once told Marcus. "You've shown me that kindness isn't just about giving. It's about creating ripples that touch countless lives." Inspired by Mr. Thompson's words, Marcus made it a point to pay forward the kindness he had received. Whenever he encountered someone in need, whether it was a struggling student or a stranger on the street, he went out of his way to offer assistance. He encouraged others to do the same, spreading the message that even the smallest acts of kindness could have a profound impact. This philosophy became the cornerstone of Pathways to Purpose, shaping its mission and values. Participants were taught not only how to achieve personal success, but also how to uplift those around them. As the years passed, Marcus's reputation as a changemaker grew beyond his hometown. He was invited to speak at national conferences, write articles for prominent publications, and appear on television shows to discuss his work. While the attention was flattering, Marcus never let it go to his head. He remained humble, always crediting his achievements to the collective efforts of everyone involved with Pathways to Purpose. In interviews, he often highlighted the role Mr. Thompson had played in his journey, calling him the unsung hero who had set everything in motion. Mr. Thompson, however, preferred to stay out of the spotlight. Content with living quietly and watching Marcus thrive, he found joy in knowing that his decision to invest in the young man had created a ripple effect far greater than he could have anticipated. On occasion, he would visit Pathways to Purpose, events where he was greeted warmly by participants and staff alike. Seeing the smiles on their faces and hearing their stories of triumph brought tears to his eyes. He knew that the legacy he and Marcus had built together would endure long after he was gone. Eventually, the inevitable happened. Mr. Thompson passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by loved ones. The news hit Marcus hard, leaving a void that no amount of success could fill. Yet even in his grief, Marcus found solace in the knowledge that Mr. Thompson's life had been a testament to the power of redemption and renewal. At the memorial service, Marcus delivered a heartfelt eulogy, recounting the story of their unlikely friendship and the profound impact it had on both their lives. "Mr. Thompson taught me that kindness is the greatest gift we can give and receive," he said. "He may be gone, but his spirit lives on in every life we touch through Pathways to Purpose." In the wake of Mr. Thompson's passing, Marcus channeled his emotions into action. He established a scholarship fund in the older man's name, awarding financial aid to students pursuing careers in education, social work, and community development. The scholarship served as a tribute to Mr. Thompson's belief in the transformative power of learning and compassion. Recipients were chosen not only for their academic achievements, but also for their commitment to making a positive impact in their communities. As Pathways to Purpose expanded nationwide, Marcus traveled extensively to oversee operations and connect with participants. Despite the demands of his schedule, he made it a priority to maintain personal relationships with those involved in the organization, whether it was visiting branch offices, attending graduation ceremonies, or simply sitting down for coffee. With a mentee, Marcus ensured that people felt seen and valued. To him, leadership wasn't about authority or control. It was about serving others and empowering them to reach their full potential. Looking back on his journey, Marcus marveled at how far he had come. From a boy sharing his last sandwich with a homeless man to a visionary leading a movement for change. His life was a testament to the idea that kindness could alter destinies. He often thought about the boy he used to be, the boy who walked miles to school with holes in his shoes, dreaming of a better future. That boy still lived within him, reminding him to stay humble and grateful. And though Marcus now enjoyed privileges he once thought unimaginable, he carried the lessons of his past with him wherever he went. Marcus's story became a source of inspiration for countless individuals, proving that greatness wasn't reserved for the wealthy or powerful. It belonged to anyone willing to extend a hand, listen with an open heart, and believe in the possibility of change. Through Pathways to Purpose, Marcus ensured that his legacy, and Mr. Thompson's, would continue to shine brightly, lighting the way for generations to come. As Pathways to Purpose continued to expand, Marcus found himself facing challenges that tested not only his leadership skills, but also his resilience. The organization's rapid growth had brought with it new responsibilities and complexities, from managing finances to ensuring quality across multiple locations. While Marcus was grateful for the progress they had made, he couldn't ignore the growing pressure. There were days when he felt stretched thin, juggling meetings, fundraising efforts, and personal commitments. Yet, through it all, he reminded himself of the reason he had started this journey: to create opportunities for those who needed them most. One of the biggest hurdles Marcus encountered was balancing his academic pursuits with his role at Pathways to Purpose. By now, he had transferred from community college to a prestigious university, where he studied business administration with a focus on nonprofit management. His professors recognized his potential and encouraged him to aim high, urging him to consider graduate school or even starting his own consulting firm someday. However, Marcus knew that his true calling lay in serving others. He often stayed up late into the night, writing essays and completing assignments while simultaneously overseeing projects at Pathways to Purpose. Despite the exhaustion, he refused to compromise on either front, determined to excel academically without neglecting his mission. During this time, Marcus leaned heavily on the support system he had built around him. Dr. Carter remained a steadfast mentor, offering guidance whenever he felt overwhelmed. She helped him refine his leadership style, teaching him how to delegate tasks effectively and trust others to share the workload. "You can't do everything yourself," she would say. "Leadership is about empowering others to step up and take ownership." Taking her advice to heart, Marcus began involving more participants and volunteers in decision-making processes. This not only lightened his burden, but also fostered a sense of pride and responsibility among team members. Another source of strength came from the stories of success shared by Pathways to Purpose participants. These stories served as constant reminders of why Marcus had embarked on this journey in the first place. For instance, there was Daniel, a young man who had grown up in foster care and struggled with self-doubt. Through the mentorship program, Daniel discovered a passion for photography and eventually landed an internship at a renowned studio. Another participant, Lisa, overcame her fear of public speaking after joining a debate club organized by Pathways to Purpose. Her newfound confidence propelled her to pursue a degree in law, inspired by Marcus's example of using education as a tool for change. Despite these victories, Marcus faced moments of doubt. Critics questioned whether Pathways to Purpose could sustain its momentum, pointing out the logistical challenges of scaling an operation so quickly. Some accused him of being overly ambitious, warning that he risked spreading resources too thin. Others dismissed his efforts altogether, claiming that systemic issues like poverty and inequality were beyond the reach of a single organization. At times, these criticisms weighed heavily on Marcus, making him question whether he was truly making a difference. But then he would think of Mr. Thompson's unwavering belief in him and find renewed determination to push forward. To address concerns about sustainability, Marcus implemented several strategic changes. First, he established regional advisory boards composed of local leaders, educators, and community advocates. These boards provided valuable insights into the unique needs of each area, allowing Pathways to Purpose to tailor its programs accordingly. Second, he introduced rigorous training sessions for staff and volunteers, emphasizing the importance of accountability and transparency. Finally, he launched partnerships with corporations and government agencies, securing long-term funding, streams that reduced reliance on unpredictable grants and donations. These measures paid off, strengthening Pathways to Purpose's foundation and enabling it to weather storms that might have otherwise derailed its progress. As the organization stabilized, Marcus turned his attention to addressing broader societal issues. He became increasingly vocal about the need for systemic reforms, advocating for policies that prioritized education, healthcare, and economic equity. He attended rallies, wrote op-eds, and collaborated with activists working toward similar goals. Though some accused him of straying from Pathways to Purpose's core mission, Marcus believed that fighting for structural change was essential to creating lasting impact. In addition to his advocacy work, Marcus sought ways to honor Mr. Thompson's legacy. Beyond the scholarship fund named after him, Marcus initiated an annual event called Kindness Day, dedicated to celebrating acts of compassion within the community. On this day, Pathways to Purpose participants volunteered at shelters, cleaned parks, and visited nursing homes, spreading joy and goodwill wherever they went. Marcus hoped that by fostering a culture of kindness, he could inspire others to embrace empathy as a way of life. The event gained widespread recognition, drawing media coverage and participation from people of all ages and backgrounds. Through all the challenges and triumphs, Marcus never lost sight of the values instilled in him by Mr. Thompson. Humility, gratitude, and perseverance remained at the heart of everything he did. Even as accolades poured in, awards, honorary degrees, and invitations to speak at prestigious venues, Marcus stayed grounded, always attributing his success to the collective efforts of everyone involved with Pathways to Purpose. He often reminded himself that leadership wasn't about standing above others. It was about standing beside them, lifting them up along the way. One of the most memorable moments during this period occurred when Marcus returned to his hometown for a special ceremony honoring Pathways to Purpose's achievements. Standing on the same stage where he had once delivered impassioned speeches about kindness, Marcus looked out at the crowd, a sea of faces representing the diverse tapestry of lives touched by the organization. Among them were former classmates who had teased him for wearing patched-up clothes, teachers who had doubted his potential, and neighbors who had dismissed his dreams as unrealistic. Now, they sat before him, clapping enthusiastically, moved by the realization that someone they had underestimated had changed countless lives, including their own. After the ceremony, Marcus took a quiet walk through the park where he had first met Mr. Thompson. The bench where they had shared conversations still stood, though it was weathered and worn from years of use. Sitting down, Marcus closed his eyes and allowed memories to wash over him. The smell of peanut butter sandwiches, the sound of Mr. Thompson's raspy voice, the warmth of connection forged between two strangers. Tears welled up in his eyes as he whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. None of this would have been possible without you." That moment of reflection rekindled Marcus's resolve to continue pushing boundaries. He realized that while Pathways to Purpose had achieved remarkable success, there was still much work to be done. Inspired by the idea of leaving a lasting legacy, Marcus began exploring ways to replicate the model internationally. He envisioned a global network of organizations united by the same mission: to empower underserved youth and foster cultures of kindness worldwide. To achieve this vision, he reached out to international partners, participated in global conferences, and studied best practices from similar initiatives around the world. The journey ahead promised to be challenging, requiring Marcus to navigate cultural differences, language barriers, and geopolitical complexities. Yet, he embraced the challenge wholeheartedly, driven by the belief that kindness transcended borders. Just as Mr. Thompson's generosity had transformed his life, Marcus hoped that Pathways to Purpose could ignite hope and opportunity in communities across the globe. With every step forward, he carried the spirit of kindness that had guided him since that fateful evening in the park. As Marcus prepared for this next chapter, he reflected on the lessons he had learned along the way. He understood now that greatness wasn't defined by wealth, status, or power, but by the ability to uplift others. It was about seeing the humanity in everyone, regardless of their circumstances, and believing in their capacity to grow and thrive. Most importantly, it was about recognizing that kindness wasn't just an act, it was a ripple effect capable of changing the world. And as Marcus stood on the brink of expanding his vision globally, he knew one thing for certain: the story of a poor black boy and a homeless millionaire was far from over. It was just beginning. As Marcus embarked on the ambitious goal of expanding Pathways to Purpose globally, he quickly realized that this new phase would require more than just passion and determination. The complexities of working across borders, cultures, and languages presented challenges he had never faced before. Yet, Marcus approached these obstacles with the same resilience that had carried him through every other stage of his journey. He began by researching countries where the need for educational and community support programs was most urgent, focusing on regions plagued by poverty, conflict, or lack of access to resources. His first target was a small village in Kenya, where children often walked miles to attend overcrowded schools with insufficient supplies. To lay the groundwork for this international expansion, Marcus collaborated with local leaders and organizations already operating in the area. He understood that success depended on respecting the culture and traditions of each community, rather than imposing an outsider's vision. Through partnerships, he learned about the specific needs of the villagers: clean water, school materials, and mentorship opportunities, and tailored Pathways to Purposes initiatives accordingly. Volunteers from the U.S. traveled to Kenya to help set up classrooms, distribute books, and train teachers, while locals were empowered to take ownership of the projects. This collaborative approach not only ensured sustainability, but also fostered trust and mutual respect between Pathways to Purpose and the communities it aimed to serve. The launch of the Kenyan branch marked a turning point for Marcus and the organization. For the first time, Pathways to Purpose was making a tangible impact beyond American soil. Children who had once struggled to stay in school now had access to tools and encouragement that reignited their love for learning. One such child was Amina, a bright 12-year-old girl whose family couldn't afford to send her to secondary school. With the help of scholarships provided by Pathways to Purpose, Amina enrolled in a nearby academy and quickly rose to the top of her class. Her story became a symbol of hope, inspiring others in the village to believe that education could break cycles of poverty. Encouraged by the success in Kenya, Marcus set his sights on other parts of the world. Over the next few years, Pathways to Purpose expanded to India, Brazil, and the Philippines, adapting its programs to address the unique challenges faced by each region. In India, the focus was on combating child labor and providing vocational training to teenagers at risk of dropping out of school. In Brazil, efforts centered around reducing gang violence by offering youth alternative pathways through sports and arts programs. And in the Philippines, disaster relief and rebuilding initiatives were integrated into Pathways to Purpose's mission, ensuring that communities devastated by natural calamities received both immediate aid and long-term support. Despite the progress, Marcus encountered setbacks that tested his resolve. Funding remained a persistent issue, as donors were sometimes hesitant to invest in overseas projects due to concerns about corruption or mismanagement. To overcome this challenge, Marcus implemented strict financial oversight measures, including regular audits and transparent reporting systems. He also launched global fundraising campaigns, leveraging social media platforms to share stories of transformation and connect with potential supporters. These efforts paid off, attracting contributions from individuals and corporations eager to be part of something bigger than themselves. Another hurdle came in the form of cultural misunderstandings. In some cases, well-intentioned initiatives clashed with local customs, leading to resistance from community members. For example, when Pathways to Purpose introduced gender equality workshops in certain conservative areas, they faced backlash from elders who viewed the concept as a threat to traditional values. Rather than abandoning the idea altogether, Marcus worked closely with local leaders to find common ground. By framing the workshops as tools for economic empowerment rather than ideological shifts, he was able to gain acceptance and gradually shift mindsets over time. Through all the highs and lows, Marcus continued to draw inspiration from Mr. Thompson's legacy. Though the older man was no longer physically present, his influence loomed large over every decision Marcus made. Whenever doubts crept in, Marcus reminded himself of the simple act of kindness that had sparked their extraordinary friendship. Reminder that even the smallest gestures could lead to monumental change. In honor of Mr. Thompson, Marcus established Kindness Ambassadors, a program that trained participants to embody and spread compassion within their own communities. These ambassadors became the backbone of Pathways to Purpose's global network, serving as role models and catalysts for positive action. As the organization grew, so did its reputation. Media outlets around the world began covering Pathways to Purpose's work, highlighting its innovative approaches and measurable impact. Documentaries, interviews, and articles showcased the stories of individuals whose lives had been transformed by the organization. This exposure brought unprecedented levels of visibility and credibility, opening doors to partnerships with influential figures and institutions. Politicians sought Marcus's advice on policy reforms, educators invited him to speak at conferences, and philanthropists offered substantial donations to fuel further expansion. Yet, despite the accolades, Marcus remained deeply connected to the grassroots level of Pathways to Purpose. No matter how busy his schedule became, he made it a point to visit each branch personally, spending time with participants and listening to their feedback. Whether it was playing soccer with kids in Brazil, sharing meals with families in India, or planting trees alongside volunteers in the Philippines, Marcus immersed himself in the daily realities of the people he served. These experiences kept him grounded, reminding him that behind every statistic was a human being with dreams and struggles. One particularly poignant moment occurred during a trip to Haiti, where Pathways to Purpose had recently launched a project focused on rebuilding schools destroyed by earthquakes. As Marcus toured one of the newly constructed facilities, he met a young boy named Jean-Pierre, whose enthusiasm for learning was infectious. Despite having lost his parents in the disaster, Jean-Pierre spoke with unwavering optimism about his future. "I want to be a teacher," he told Marcus, his eyes shining with determination, "so I can help other kids like me." Moved by the boy's words, Marcus promised to support him every step of the way, vowing to ensure that Jean-Pierre and countless others like him would have the resources needed to achieve their goals. Back home, Marcus faced another layer of complexity, managing the growing demands placed on Pathways to Purpose's headquarters. With operations spanning multiple continents, communication and coordination became increasingly challenging. To streamline processes, Marcus invested in technology, implementing digital platforms that allowed teams to collaborate seamlessly regardless of location. He also hired experienced staff members to oversee different regions, entrusting them with the autonomy to make decisions based on local needs. While delegation required letting go of some control, Marcus recognized that empowering others was key to sustaining growth. Throughout this period, Marcus continued to advocate for systemic change, using his platform to amplify marginalized voices and push for policies that addressed root causes of inequality. He joined forces with activists, scholars, and policymakers to tackle issues ranging from climate justice to healthcare access. Though these battles often felt uphill, Marcus found strength in solidarity, knowing that he wasn't fighting alone. Together, they formed a coalition united by a shared vision of a fairer, kinder world. As Pathways to Purpose entered its second decade, Marcus reflected on how far it had come since its humble beginnings. What had started as a modest nonprofit run by a determined young man had blossomed into a global movement touching millions of lives. Yet Marcus knew that the journey was far from over. There were still countless communities waiting to be reached, countless dreams waiting to be realized. With each passing day, he reaffirmed his commitment to creating a world where kindness wasn't just an ideal, but a lived reality. A world where everyone, regardless of their circumstances, had the opportunity to thrive. And so, Marcus pressed onward, carrying with him the lessons of his past and the hope of a brighter future. He envisioned a world where acts of kindness created ripples that transcended borders, uniting humanity in a shared quest for compassion and understanding. It was a bold vision, but Marcus believed wholeheartedly that it was possible. After all, if a poor black boy and a homeless millionaire could change each other's lives forever, then anything was achievable. With that conviction burning brightly in his heart, Marcus stepped boldly into the unknown, ready to write the next chapter of this remarkable story. As Pathways to Purpose continued its global expansion, Marcus found himself reflecting on the profound impact kindness had not only on individuals but also on entire communities. He realized that while programs and initiatives were essential, it was the spirit of compassion that truly transformed lives. This realization fueled his determination to deepen the organization's focus on fostering empathy and connection. Marcus introduced a new initiative called Kindness Circles, where participants from different countries came together virtually to share their stories, challenges, and triumphs. These gatherings created a sense of unity, reminding everyone involved that despite cultural and geographical differences, they shared common hopes and struggles. The Kindness Circles quickly became a cornerstone of Pathways to Purpose's mission. Participants often spoke about how hearing others' experiences gave them strength and perspective. For instance, a teenager in Brazil dealing with gang violence drew inspiration from a young woman in Kenya who had overcome similar adversity. Likewise, a teacher in India struggling to motivate her students found encouragement from a mentor in the Philippines who had faced comparable obstacles. These exchanges reinforced Marcus's belief that kindness was a universal language, capable of bridging divides and building bridges of understanding. Despite the success of these initiatives, Marcus knew that sustainability was critical to ensuring long-term impact. To achieve this, he emphasized empowering local leaders to take charge of projects within their communities. By providing training, resources, and ongoing support, Pathways to Purpose enabled individuals to become agents of change in their own right. One such leader was Fatima, a former participant from Morocco who had benefited from the organization's vocational training program. After completing her education, she returned to her hometown and established a center offering free workshops on entrepreneurship and financial literacy. Her efforts not only uplifted her community, but also inspired others to follow in her footsteps. Marcus also recognized the importance of addressing environmental issues as part of Pathways to Purpose's broader mission. Climate change disproportionately affected vulnerable populations, exacerbating poverty and inequality. Determined to make a difference, Marcus launched eco-friendly initiatives aimed at promoting sustainable practices. In Haiti, for example, Pathways to Purpose partnered with local farmers to implement regenerative agriculture techniques, improving food security while protecting the environment. Similarly, in India, volunteers planted thousands of trees to combat deforestation and create green spaces for children to play and learn. These efforts underscored the interconnectedness of social and environmental well-being, reinforcing the idea that kindness extended beyond human relationships to encompass the planet itself. As the organization's influence grew, so did its ability to attract high-profile supporters. Celebrities, business tycoons, and political figures began endorsing Pathways to Purpose, lending their voices and resources to amplify its reach. While Marcus appreciated the attention, he remained vigilant about maintaining the organization's integrity. He insisted that partnerships align with its core values of humility, inclusivity, and service. Any collaboration that prioritized profit over people or sought to exploit the goodwill associated with pathways to purpose was swiftly rejected. This unwavering commitment to authenticity earned Marcus widespread respect and trust. One of the most significant endorsements came from a renowned tech billionaire who offered to fund the development of an app designed to connect pathways to purpose participants worldwide. The app, named Pathfinder, allowed users to access educational resources, join virtual mentorship sessions, and participate in kindness circles. It also featured a storytelling platform where individuals could share their journeys, inspiring others facing similar challenges. Pathfinder revolutionized the way Pathways to Purpose operated, making its services more accessible and inclusive than ever before. Within months of its launch, the app had been downloaded by millions, further solidifying the organization's global presence. Through all the milestones and achievements, Marcus never forgot the personal sacrifices that had brought him here. Late nights spent studying, early mornings working at the grocery store, and countless hours devoted to planning and strategizing had taken a toll on his health and well-being. Friends and colleagues often urged him to slow down, warning that burnout would hinder his ability to lead effectively. Though Marcus initially dismissed their concerns, he eventually acknowledged the need for balance. He began prioritizing self-care, setting aside time for hobbies like reading and hiking, which helped recharge his mind and body. During one of these reflective moments, Marcus revisited old journals containing notes and sketches from his teenage years. Flipping through the pages, he marveled at how far he had come since those days of uncertainty and struggle. The boy who had once walked miles to school with holes in his shoes now traveled the world, advocating for justice and equality. Yet, even as he celebrated his accomplishments, Marcus felt a deep sense of gratitude for the people who had supported him along the way. His mother, whose resilience had taught him the value of perseverance, Dr. Carter, whose guidance had shaped his leadership style, and of course Mr. Thompson, whose act of faith had set everything in motion. Inspired by these reflections, Marcus decided to document his journey in a memoir titled Ripples of Kindness. The book chronicled his life from childhood poverty to founding Pathways to Purpose, highlighting the pivotal moments and lessons that had defined his path. Writing the memoir proved cathartic, allowing Marcus to process emotions he hadn't fully confronted before. It also served as a tribute to Mr. Thompson, whose wisdom and generosity continued to guide him. Upon its release, Ripples of Kindness became an instant bestseller, resonating with readers across generations and backgrounds. The success of the memoir opened new avenues for Marcus to spread his message of hope and compassion. Invitations poured in for speaking engagements, interviews, and panel discussions. At each event, Marcus shared not only his story, but also the stories of those whose lives had been touched by Pathways to Purpose. He encouraged audiences to embrace kindness as a guiding principle, urging them to look beyond themselves and consider how their actions could ripple outward to benefit others. His speeches were met with standing ovations, leaving listeners inspired to make a difference in their own corners of the world. Amidst the whirlwind of activity, Marcus made a conscious effort to return to the roots of his journey. He visited the park where he had first met Mr. Thompson, sitting on the same bench where they had shared countless conversations. As he gazed at the familiar surroundings, memories flooded back: the cold evening air, the smell of peanut butter sandwiches, the warmth of connection forged between two strangers. Tears welled up in his eyes as he whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Your kindness changed everything." That visit reignited Marcus's resolve to keep pushing boundaries. He envisioned expanding Pathways to Purpose's reach even further, targeting remote and underserved regions that had yet to benefit from its programs. He dreamed of creating a global network of schools, shelters, and community centers united by a shared commitment to kindness and empowerment. Though daunting, the prospect excited him, fueling his passion for innovation and collaboration. To bring this vision to life, Marcus convened a summit bringing together leaders from various sectors: education, healthcare, technology, and environmental conservation. Together, They brainstormed strategies for addressing complex challenges holistically. For example, integrating renewable energy solutions into schools not only reduced costs, but also educated students about sustainability. Similarly, combining mental health support with vocational training equipped participants with the tools needed to thrive both personally and professionally. These interdisciplinary approaches exemplified Marcus's belief that meaningful change required tackling problems from multiple angles. As Pathways to Purpose entered its third decade, Marcus reflected on the legacy he hoped to leave behind. More than accolades or recognition, he wanted to be remembered as someone who believed in the inherent goodness of humanity, someone who saw potential in every individual, regardless of their circumstances, someone who demonstrated that kindness wasn't just a fleeting gesture but a powerful force capable of transforming the world. With that conviction firmly rooted in his heart, Marcus stepped boldly into the future, ready to continue writing the extraordinary story of a poor black boy and a homeless millionaire whose lives had intertwined in ways neither could have imagined. As Marcus moved deeper into the third decade of Pathways to Purpose, he began to see the seeds he had planted years ago blossom into something far greater than he could have ever imagined. The organization had grown from a small nonprofit in a struggling town to a global movement that touched millions of lives across continents. Yet what truly amazed him was not the scale of its reach but the depth of its impact. Everywhere he looked, he saw evidence of how kindness, when nurtured and shared, created ripples that transformed entire communities. From classrooms in Kenya to community centers in Brazil, the spirit of compassion was alive and thriving, proving that even the smallest acts of goodwill could spark monumental change. One of the most profound examples of this transformation came during a visit to a remote village in Nepal. Pathways to Purpose had recently partnered with local leaders to establish a vocational training center aimed at empowering women who had been marginalized by societal norms. These women, many of whom had never stepped foot outside their homes, without permission, were now learning skills like tailoring, carpentry, and entrepreneurship. On the day of Marcus's visit, one participant named Sita stood up to share her story. She spoke of how she had once felt trapped in a life dictated by others, unable to dream beyond survival. But through the program, she had discovered her own strength and potential. "I am no longer just someone's daughter or wife," she said proudly. "I am a business owner, a leader, and a role model for my children." Her words echoed through the room, leaving everyone, including Marcus, moved to tears. Moments like these reminded Marcus why he had dedicated his life to this cause. It wasn't about numbers or statistics, it was about people. Each success story was a testament to the power of believing in someone, of seeing their worth when they couldn't see it themselves. And while Marcus took pride in the progress Pathways to Purpose had made, he knew there was still much work to be done. Poverty, inequality, and injustice remained pervasive forces in the world, requiring constant vigilance and action. With every victory, Marcus reminded himself that complacency was the enemy of progress. There were always more lives to touch, more barriers to break, and more dreams to nurture. To ensure that Pathways to Purpose remained relevant and effective, Marcus embraced innovation as a guiding principle. He encouraged his team to experiment with new ideas. Whether it was integrating artificial intelligence into educational platforms or using blockchain technology to improve transparency and funding. One such initiative involved creating a digital marketplace where artisans trained by Pathways to Purpose could sell their products globally. This not only provided participants with sustainable income streams, but also showcased their talents on an international stage. Seeing handmade crafts from rural India featured alongside luxury goods on e-commerce sites was a powerful reminder that creativity and hard work transcended borders. At the same time, Marcus understood that technological advancements were meaningless without human connection. He continued to prioritize face-to-face interactions, making regular visits to branches around the world to listen to participants' feedback and address their concerns. During one such trip to South Africa, he met a young man named Thabo, whose life had been shaped by violence and loss. After joining a Pathways to Purpose sports program, Thabo found solace in soccer, and eventually became a coach, teaching younger kids discipline and teamwork. When Marcus asked him what kept him motivated, Thabo replied simply, "You showed us that we matter. That's all anyone needs to keep going." Those words stayed with Marcus long after he left, reinforcing his belief that empathy was the foundation of lasting change. Despite the organization's successes, challenges continued to arise. Political instability, economic downturns, and natural disasters often threatened to derail projects and disrupt progress. In some cases, Pathways to Purpose had to temporarily suspend operations due to safety concerns or lack of resources. Yet, Marcus refused to let setbacks define them. Instead, he viewed each obstacle as an opportunity to adapt, innovate, and grow stronger. For example, when floods devastated parts of Bangladesh, wiping out entire villages, Pathways to Purpose shifted its focus to disaster relief efforts. Volunteers worked tirelessly to rebuild homes, distribute food, and provide psychological support to survivors, ensuring that recovery went beyond physical infrastructure to encompass emotional healing. Through it all, Marcus remained deeply connected to the values instilled in him by Mr. Thompson. Humility, gratitude, and perseverance guided every decision he made, reminding him that leadership was not about personal glory, but about serving others. He often thought back to the evening he first met Mr. Thompson, the cold pavement, the flickering street lamp, the simple act of sharing a sandwich, and marveled at how that moment had set everything in motion. It was a humbling reminder that greatness wasn't reserved for the wealthy or powerful. It belonged to anyone willing to extend a hand and believe in the possibility of change. In honor of Mr. Thompson's legacy, Marcus launched a special campaign called Million Acts of Kindness. The goal was simple, yet ambitious. Inspire 1 million acts of kindness worldwide within a year. Participants were encouraged to document their actions, whether it was helping a neighbor carry groceries, tutoring a struggling student, or planting a tree, and share them on social media using a designated hashtag. What started as a grassroots effort quickly gained momentum, capturing the attention of celebrities, influencers, and everyday individuals alike. By the end of the campaign, over 2 million acts of kindness had been recorded, exceeding expectations and demonstrating the collective power of compassion. The success of the campaign inspired Marcus to think bigger. He envisioned a future where kindness wasn't just an initiative, but a way of life, a cultural shift that permeated every aspect of society. To achieve this, he collaborated with educators, policymakers, and thought leaders to integrate kindness into school curriculums, workplace cultures, and public policies. Workshops on empathy and conflict resolution became mandatory in schools supported by Pathways to Purpose, while companies partnering with the organization committed to fostering inclusive and supportive environments for employees. These efforts laid the groundwork for a kinder, more equitable world, one where differences were celebrated rather than feared. As Marcus reflected on his journey, he realized that his greatest accomplishment wasn't building an empire or amassing wealth. It was inspiring others to embrace their own potential. Everywhere he went, he encountered people whose lives had been transformed by Pathways to Purpose, not because of what the organization had given them, but because of what it had helped them discover within themselves. Aisha, a former participant from Egypt, summed it up perfectly when she said, "Pathways didn't just teach me skills, it taught me to believe in myself, and that belief has changed everything." Marcus carried these stories with him wherever he went, drawing strength from the knowledge that he was part of something bigger than himself. Though he faced moments of doubt and exhaustion, he never lost sight of the mission that drove him forward. He often reminded himself that true leadership wasn't about standing above others. It was about standing beside them, lifting them up along the way. And so, he pressed onward, fueled by the conviction that kindness was the ultimate currency, a force capable of breaking cycles of poverty, bridging divides, and healing wounds. Years later, as Marcus prepared to step down as CEO of Pathways to Purpose, he did so with a heart full of gratitude and hope. He had built an organization that would continue to thrive long after he was gone, thanks to the countless individuals who had poured their hearts into its mission. As he handed over the reins to a new generation of leaders, he left them with a simple message. Never underestimate the power of kindness. It may start small, but it grows exponentially, touching lives you'll never even know. Trust in that ripple effect, and let it guide you. And so, the story of Marcus and Mr. Thompson came full circle. A tale of two strangers brought together by circumstance, united by kindness, and bound by a shared vision of a better world. Their journey proved that greatness wasn't defined by wealth, status, or power, but by the ability to uplift others. It was a lesson that resonated across generations, inspiring countless individuals to follow in their footsteps. Through pathways to purpose, the legacy of a poor black boy and a homeless millionaire lived on, reminding the world that kindness changes everything.